If this is the last iteration that we've seen of Bryce Young, not only can we confirm that he was a bust, but he will go down as arguably the worst or biggest bust in NFL history. Seeing where he was drafted, seeing what the Panthers gave up to get him, and there was absolutely no success in the NFL. And I hate that, because that brings me to the second part. That brings me to the part that Bryce Young can't control. Everything that Bryce Young could control, it didn't work. So it's not just on Bryce Young. I mean, it's not just the fact of the team let Bryce Young down. There were things that, I mean, again, you're expected to get better. It just seemed like that he couldn't. His confidence was done for. And that's one thing about professional athletes. That's one thing about especially football players. When your confidence is done, when you don't have any more, when your confidence is shot, on top of that, you lose time after time. I mean, he had zero touchdowns and 3 interceptions just this season. Usually, you lose a player like that, and it looks, again, I think he's done in Carolina. But let me get back to that second part. I think a famous thing that we like to do as fans, as analysts, is compare. I think that's one of the easiest ways. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that people are taking the easy way. I'm not saying that people are competent. No, I think it's one of the easiest ways to dissect the game is compare. Look at what you're seeing and compare it to something that we've either seen before or not seen before. And when we talk about Bryce Young, the obvious thing to do is compare him to what we're seeing out of C.J. Stroud. Seeing as though their NFL stories will always be interlinked. C.J. Stroud, a lot of people were, and you hear Frank Wright and people talk about it, the Panthers wanted to get C.J. Stroud over Bryce Young. But higher ups, David Tepper, the owner, he wanted Bryce Young. And obviously they made the trade, this, that, and the third, with Chicago, which ultimately lost them Caleb Love and Rome Odunze. But to each his own. But I don't think we give that C.J. Stroud situation the proper microscope that it deserves. When you're a high draft pick in the NFL, in any sport usually, when you're a high draft pick, 9.9 times out of 10 you're going to a bad team. That's why they were able to get you. Unless you see some crazy trades, which you usually don't see in the NFL, you're going to a team that was terrible the year before. And it takes a good team, a smart team, to understand how to get yourself out of a bad situation while hitting on draft picks. I said we don't give that C.J. Stroud situation the microscope it deserves because it is extremely rare. And I don't think maybe he does, but I don't think we as fans understand the bullet that C.J. Stroud dodged not going to Carolina and instead ending up in Houston. Look at everything that has happened with Houston since C.J. Stroud's got there. You got Tank Dell. You have Nico Collins. You have Stephon Diggs. You have Dalton Schultz. You have Joe Mixon. You have a new head coach in DeMeco Ryan. You have a defensive star in Danielle Hunter. You have Laramie Tunsil, a great offensive lineman. You have Kearse Labisser. I forgot to say his name. I apologize, bro. Out of Georgia. Rookie cornerback. What the Houston Texans have done is they've given CJ Stroud the best opportunity to win. Because, again, football is the ultimate team sport. If you get drafted somewhere, and another person we'll talk about a little later in the show is Caleb Williams. It is tough going to a team. You see, let me say it like this. When you're the number one overall pick, especially at the quarterback position, you're looked at as the savior. You're looked at as this is the person that's going to turn this franchise around. Because obviously being a number one overall pick at the quarterback position, the franchise needs some changing. But it takes the good organizations to know that while they can be the savior, they can be the franchise changer, like a CJ Stroud, it's going to take work from the organization to help him. Because again, people forget these are still young players. These are still rookies at the end of the day. Why did I talk about CJ Stroud so much? And this is a Bryce Young topic. You can almost say it has been malpractice what the Carolina Panthers have done to and for Bryce Young. What the Carolina Panthers, what it looks like they've done is they drafted Bryce Young and said, hey, yo, go save us. Go save us. We're not going to help you with nothing. We're not going to give you a good offensive line. We're not going to give you, in fact, we're going to take pieces away from you. We're going to take pieces like DJ Moore away from you. We're going to make a bunch of moves, but our best players like Brian Burns, yeah, he's gone. But he's good. You're good. You are going to take us out of obscurity. Forget all these other players. We're just going to get a bunch of names. We're going to get Adam Thielen, who's pretty old in NFL terms. We're going to we're not really going to address the offensive line because you're good, right? In Alabama, you were a mobile quarterback. You're good. Alabama, you won the Heisman. You have records at Alabama. We're good. You got a national championship. We're good. While yes, Bryce Young, there are things that he should have been better at. But the real problem of this story is the team did not help him. Which is why he has all the accolades as a bust. Since being in the league, he's damn near last in all the important quarterback categories. But the Panthers did not help him out at all. In fact, in the contrary, they did everything to hinder his growth. Whether we talk about not providing an offensive line, whether we talk about not giving him suitable pieces outside of this year's draft in the wide receiver position. They had Frank Wright and fired him after Bryce Young's first year. I started this off by saying that Bryce Young has pretty much turned into the poster child for the issues, the problems that could arise as a number one overall pick, especially at the quarterback position. The worst thing that ever happened, ever happened to the Carolina Panthers is Cam Newton. Cam Newton was the absolute worst thing that has ever happened to the Carolina Panthers. I say this a lot, and I hope that I am doing a good job at explaining what I mean when I say this. Success is not always a positive for situations. Sometimes success can be the last thing that you need. Cam Newton's success as a rookie, Cam Newton's success in 2015 taking the team to the Super Bowl, I think it gave the ownership a false sense of how important it is to build a team. Because Cam Newton, especially that first year when he was breaking all the rookie records and, throwing for 400 yards the first two games, that year, the Panthers really didn't have anybody. In fact, majority of his career on the offensive side of the ball, the Panthers really didn't have much talent when Cam Newton was the quarterback. But Cam Newton was still breaking records. Yeah, well, Cam Newton's also like 6'6", 6'5", 270 pounds. Cam Newton is one of the greatest college football players we've ever seen. Cam Newton is a physical specimen. But because Cam Newton succeeded with little to nothing, I think it put in Carolina's mind, if we get the right quarterback, he can concede. I mean, he can succeed with nothing. That has to be the case because they have given Bryce Young nothing to succeed with. And now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, because I'm going to talk about Baker Mayfield, I'm going to talk about Sam Darnold. They didn't really give Sam Darnold anything to succeed. They didn't really give Baker Mayfield anything to succeed with. And now you're starting to see, when we look at how Baker looks in Tampa, when we see at least the first two games, how Sam Darnold looks in Minnesota, and how drastically different they looked at Carolina, there's a common denominator in all this. The Panthers. I feel bad for Bryce Young because a lot of the factors that got us here has everything to do with him, but nothing to do with him at the same time. Obviously, Bryce Young is the topic of conversation, but the Carolina Panthers is the real villain in this movie because they did everything possible not to put their franchise quarterback, and they viewed him as a franchise quarterback because he was number one overall. They did nothing to help him. And what's unfortunate about this is Bryce Young is the one that's going to have bust on his jacket, not the Panthers. The Panthers have been a poverty franchise since I can remember because they have done everything wrong. They did everything wrong with Cam Newton. They did everything wrong with Christian McCaffrey. They did everything wrong with DJ Moore. They did everything wrong with Brian Burns. Every turn. Oh, and they did everything wrong with Bryce Young. Every single turn they could have gone right, They went left. And they essentially, very possibly, could have ruined a young man's career. Because their lack of knowledge of how to run a competent organization. I talk about poverty franchises all the time. One of the biggest issues with a poverty franchise is the careers they ruin. Somebody is going to have to put their faith in Bryce Young. And that's the issue, because on tape, he has really done nothing in the NFL to warrant that trust. So while the Carolina Panthers are going to keep going, they're going to keep selling tickets. This is yet another situation where they ruined somebody's career, potentially. I don't want to call Bryce Young a bust, because he's still young, and there's still time. Maybe no more time in Carolina, which might be the best thing for him. But I think there's still time to revive his career. He just needs to go to the right situation. I think the issue is, and where we'll leave it is, the problem is Carolina continues to be the wrong situation for damn near every single quarterback. Oh man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.